Pumpkins, if you haven't figured out already, is my favorite topic. I grow about 200 some different varieties of pumpkin squash and gourds every year. So some of the questions that have been coming in are, I've grown pumpkins, but when are they ripe? When should I pick? So we need to know a little bit more about what you're growing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different varieties. Pumpkins are in the cucurbit family. And sometimes people question what's the difference between a pumpkin and a squash, and that's all in your terminology, but generally pumpkins are considered round and orange, but you would be perfectly correct if you called anything like that a squash. So there are debates on that, but it's however you want to classify it. There are 4 species of cucurbits that are in this family. They are classified by their stem structure and the fact that they don't cross-pollinate with each other. So Cucurbita Machata, Cucurbita Mixta, and some places you will see it called Arguarsperma. I'd like to use Mixta because I can pronounce that. Cucurbita Pipo and Cucurbita Maxima. So Cucurbita Machata, these are the pumpkin varieties that are used for commercial canning. So if you buy pumpkin in the can at the store, this bottom picture down here is the kind of pumpkin it came from. So generally these are all tan colored and they have bright orange flesh if you cut those open. So this was a neck pumpkin. You can kind of see in the edge of that picture, your butternut squash fall under Cucurbita Machata. And you can see the stem structure here, how they are joined. They also have lots of stickers on the stems and are very tough, hard stems. So picking these, you see there's some green in this. So long as they are starting to turn a color, whatever color they are supposed to be, you can safely pick them. We do not want to wait until after frost to pick pumpkins. We want to pick them before, and preferably before the vines die, because most of the time people are interested in those nice strong stems. So waiting till the vine collapse to harvest can cause issues with stems and rots and all of that. Also, if you wait till after frost on the surface of that pumpkin can lead to decay because it is freezing those water cells in that pumpkin. So Cucurbita Mixta, these look like squash. They can be striped, a solid color, or a mix of colors. This was the only one that I have in my patch this year. So this is a cushaw. And actually, preferably, we like them more this shape. And they make great pie. That's what I grew up as, making pumpkin pie. And you can see on the stem, it is very different than what we saw with that Cucurbita Machata stem. Cucurbita Pipo, this is the one everybody is most familiar with. It's your traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. It's your summer squash, so your zucchini, your yellow squash. And then it's all your ornamental gourds. So these were just some pictures that I took and gathered real quick last night of all of these are Cucurbita Pipo. So, you know, color is not necessarily how you can pick. It's kind of knowing what your varieties are, because actually this is a Cucurbita Pipo and it's tan colored like those machatas. So it's a guessing game a lot of times. So also another easy rule of thumb to know when that pumpkin is ripe is if you put a thumbnail on that skin and it's not easy to pierce with a nail. If it's real easy to pierce, it's soft yet. And then on those gourds, if those necks on a gourd is very soft, it's not going to keep. So we don't want to pick them then. And here, once again, different stem structure. These also, depending on variety, can have stickers on the stems. And they are a solid stem. And in some cases, like on these gourds, they can be tiny stems. Or in some of the jack-o'-lantern type pumpkins, they can be massive, thick, heavy stems, depending on what type you have. And then Cucurbita Maxima. These are your giant varieties. So this gentleman in the picture at the top, that was at a pumpkin weigh-in somewhere. I took that picture off the internet because there is no way I ever have any desire to grow one that big. Plus the fact that we live in Missouri and our hot temperatures in the summertime, those large pumpkins really do not like those. These have soft stems and they're hollow on the center. Unfortunately, this one's been picked long enough that you can kind of see that hollow. They come in an assortment of colors. These were just the ones I happen to have this year. That kind of shows that assortment of colors. Even though they can be those giant varieties, they don't have to be big. Although these probably weigh, this blue one probably weighs 30 pounds. They're pretty solid. There are quite a few of these varieties that are edible, but they do like those cooler temperatures and generally take longer to mature. The biggest one I had this year was 50 pounds. And then finally, gourds are Birdhouse Gourd type. They are in a different family. And so this could be your dipper gourds, your bushel gourds, swan gourds. They have all kinds of different shapes and sizes. And these are actually harvested when they are still green, but they have to be mature. And then they are left to dry or cure over winter, and typically in a place that is sheltered, like a porch or an open barn, where they can get airflow. Then they grow this lovely mold that you can see. And after they are cured, that hard outer shell you'll be able to see. And then on the inside of that, all the seeds will be bunched up, they'll rattle. And then you can take those and polish them and make them into whatever you so desire. There's all kinds of cool Birdhouse Gourd crafts available, and it's amazing what people can do with those. They are easy to distinguish in the pumpkin patch because their leaves are velvety and soft compared to any of the squash family that a lot of times they're very prickly and not very friendly. These are velvety and soft. And where pumpkins bloom yellow flowers, these have white flowers, and they open at night because they are pollinated by moths. So those are some of the differences and kind of how to go about picking when they are ripe.
Are all pumpkins edible?
So technically, yes, all pumpkins are edible, but the reality is some of them you're probably not going to want to expend the effort at them to eat them because they're not going to be as good.
Are the Maximas the longest keeping pumpkin?
So it varies. The longest I have ever kept a pumpkin in the house was almost 2 years, and it was one of the pie pumpkins, the Mixta type pumpkins. It's keeping that even temperature. It's also depending on what the growing year was like. Sometimes when we have wetter years, they just don't keep as well. I also have a few ornamental pumpkins that were from last year. I've got a few of those, and I just threw out because I didn't catch it, and it rotted in the house, which was lovely. A pie pumpkin that was from last year.